Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm Rob Hayes, Acting Chief AI and Data Officer here at USPTO. Thank you for joining us today as we explore the evolving role of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is not just a future concept. It is actively shaping our world in real time. It is advancing rapidly, influencing how we work, make decisions, and deliver value across industries. At USPTO, we have been at the forefront of emerging AI technologies within the federal space over the past year. We are intentionally building and implementing AI frameworks that integrate across all levels of our workforce, ensuring that innovation is not only adopted, but embedded in how we operate. AI has the potential to drive meaningful efficiencies and unlock new levels of innovation and patent trademark examinations, in the patent and trademark examinations. It also strengthens consistency in our workflow, allowing us to better serve inventors, businesses, and the broader innovation ecosystem. As AI continues to transform how we do business, especially within the federal workforce, it is critical that we hear directly from the leaders helping to shape this transformation. Today, you will have that opportunity to learn from those at the forefront of this work and gain insight into the impactful initiatives underway. In support of the administration's AIEO, our goal at USPTO is to boost America's ingenuity engine through IP to accelerate AI innovation. To ensure accountability and impact, our AI initiatives are prioritized and measured through key performance indicators, or also known as KPIs. These include reducing pendency, improving quality, driving efficiency gains, which include lowering expenses and addressing fraud. And if all this works well, the flywheel effect of this will increase incremental fee collections, which are ultimately great for the taxpayers and U.S. taxpayers. We'll have some time at the end for questions, so send your questions to USPTO Hour at uspto.gov. Those will be coming in, and we will be happy to address those questions when we get towards the end of this panel discussion. So let's get into today's session. We have four of our transformative leaders joining us here today. Barry Schindler from Patents, Greg Dotson from Trademark, Debbie Stevens from the Office of the CIO, and Stefano Carmis from Policy. I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves, starting from my left and going all the way down. But as we do this, if each one of you could tell us your role, how long have you been at the agency, and how you're using AI professionally right now. Barry, let's start with you.
Well, Rob, thanks for the opportunity. My name is Barry Schindler, as I said. My title is Deputy Commissioner for Patents, and I've been here 4 weeks. But what I always like to preface it with two other things to know. This agency is an agency that I dearly love, have really respected for over 35 years, have always viewed this as a partnership, so I am honored to be able to be an employee of the USPTO. Just as a little bit more background, Rob, so I just didn't start 4 weeks ago. I was a partner at a named firm for over 25 years, and my initiatives were the AI, implementation of AI at the firm, and I also served on the New Jersey Supreme Court Committee on AI, advising the courts on the ethical use of AI. So your last question is, how do I use AI professionally? I view AI as a tool and something that will assist me every single day. My three big ones are, I use it for document summaries. I use it to edit written products that I call it Barry Squared. I like to write a document and then iterate and iterate and iterate and make a better work product. And then I use it for process flows. Thank you, Rob.
Greg?
Well, thank you, Rob. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Greg Dotson. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for Trademark Administration. In June, I will celebrate my 10th anniversary at the USPTO, and it's been a wonderful 10 years. It's hard to believe it's been a decade of my life. It's a lot of fun. And as Barry said, this is just an amazing place and a great place to work, and what a wonderful set of teammates that we have. How do I use AI in my professional life? Well, like Barry and like you're going to hear from the other panelists, generally to help me write better, right? Whether it's an email, I can get a little snarky sometimes, so I try to tone down what's in the email. But also in just work products that we have. I'm going to talk to you a little bit later about requests for information that were written in our organization, and I actually put both of those into our internal LLM and asked the AI to look at those RFIs as if they were industry and how they would respond, in fact, to those RFIs. So a lot of really good work, and happy to be here.
Debbie?
Yep. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Debbie Stevens. I'm the acting CIO, and I've been with the agency for about 30-some years, and most recently in OCIO. I started out in patents, so I have a fairly good patents background, and then most recently here in the IT space. Much like my colleagues, use AI professionally for researching, summarizing documents, again, as Barry mentioned, making your drafts even more polished. That's very helpful. Certainly data analysis and data comparisons. So thank you all for joining us.
All right, my name is Stefano Carmes. Pleasure to be here with everyone today. I'm currently serving as an acting Deputy Chief Policy Officer for Patents and Innovation within the Office of Policy and International Affairs. But I've also had several other leadership positions within the Patents Business Unit. So I've been able to get a unique perspective on some of the AI initiatives in our office, whether it's been looking at tools to support examiners, on the international front with some of our partners, as well as from a policy perspective. How I've typically used AI within our office is somewhat similar to some things that have been mentioned, but with respect to assisting with drafting of talking points in support of meetings, assisting with research, using it to help locate publications on certain topics, and then going through those publications, as well as also for creating templates, whether it's for a report structure or a charter structure. I found it to be very helpful to help organize my thoughts and organize the structure of a presentation. So that's how I use it.
That's great. Thank you, guys. So as you can see, we have experience here from 4 weeks to 30 years. Quite a deep bench of experience and knowledge about this space and these 4 executives have been drilling and digging in deep on AI. We heard a little bit of how they're using it professionally, but I want to just do a lightning round real quick and get a sense of just how you guys are using it personally, AI, because I think that'll give the audience great context for the range of how you guys are thinking about AI and what the potential would be. So I'll start, Barry, I'm going to start to my left again and let you go.
Thanks, Rob, again. So I view AI supports every part of my life, and I'll just give you 2 quick examples. So when I accepted this position, I had to move from New Jersey to Alexandria. Yay for Alexandria. It's a beautiful place. Old Town is one of the nicest places I've had. But because of that, and because of the second requirement, which is politically incorrect, I had to wear a suit and tie, and I haven't worn a suit and tie in 25 years. I needed help. So how did I envision help? So I set a very large LLM. I took a picture of my closet, literally, and every morning it knows my calendar, and it asks me, how do you feel today, Barry? And I said, I feel like this. And it says, okay, so here's your wardrobe. Here's your suit, here's your shirt, here's your tie, and here's your socks. And so it runs my life with regard to that. And then the second thing, I am a fitness fiend. I have a wearable, and every morning I do my workouts based on what my wearable says, and AI essentially runs my exercise program.
That's great, Greg. I'm going to turn it to you, but maybe I should have had Barry go last, but I'll let you guys go first and see how we go.
My clothes have little animals on them. So, no, it's, thanks for the question, Rob. So I've got a house full I have a house full of budding little engineers, and they're not little anymore, they're actually grown. But we have, like many families, we have, like a group chat, we have a group LLM, and we all get to use it. And my sons right now are doing a project to do some coding work and some developing work, and I kind of peek over their shoulder and see how it's going. and Python's a little bit rough for me. So, you know, it's kind of helped me understand Python a little bit better. So there we're doing that. And then one thing of interest to my older son is, you know, my wife and I bought him a car for his 16th birthday. And so now he's improving it. So he went on the AI and he had it suggest to him all kinds of improvements that he could make in the form of interior and exterior things that he could, you know, wheels and tires and seats and paint jobs and everything else. And the LLM actually kind of built a strategy for him on how to do that and even costed out how much the stuff was going to cost. So it was actually pretty cool. So, yeah.
So I do want to say one thing, Rob. I noticed that Greg, when we did this prep session, he actually said the make of the car, but being a trademark lawyer, he's actually very conscious not to promote that. So that was a real kudos. I would have said it, but that's why you keep me honest with regard to trademarks, Greg. Kudos.
Well trained, well trained.
Yeah, so obviously some of you probably very familiar with planning your trips, your vacations, so that's always a fun AI usage. Most recently, as you can imagine, the demands of work and commuting and things like that, the dinner hour comes upon you quite quickly, and often I have certain ingredients in the house and maybe not others. So I've often asked the AI tool, given these ingredients, what can I make tonight? I'm not going to say it's always an A+ kind of dinner, but it works. But it's very cool to see how they give you substitutions and give you ideas for things that you probably wouldn't think about to make yourself on your own. So,
Great, thank you.
Stefanos.
Stefano?
All right, thank you. So in my personal time, I mentioned here I use it for research. I use it also in my personal time for some research, except in that environment, it's generally more geared towards like golf clubs and my golf swing rather than IP related. I've used it to try to learn some geometry again so I can help my son with his geometry homework, a class I was not a big fan of back when I was in high school. And then, you know, honestly, I'm always impressed with what people create using AI for just sort of entertainment. And I can easily find myself scrolling through a never-ending feed of material, you know, laughing at some of that content. So I enjoy the way others use it and create as well.
That's great. So as you can see, it's quite pervasive in everybody's lifestyle.
What do you do for personal use?
I thought you'd never ask.
Go for it.
So I would just say, no, honestly, you guys have heard me talk about this. I use the audio part of a lot of LLMs, and I commute a lot. So I have full-on conversations when I'm driving, asking about news, update, things like that. I mean, so much so that at one point my mother-in-law heard me talking and was like, who the heck are you talking to? And my wife had to explain it was an AI. But anyway, it is very pervasive. It's very helpful, and I think everybody in our audience is probably can attest to that. But let's jump into the panel right now because there's a lot to cover. Barry, I know you're new to the agency. How is patents area using AI today, and how do you see that evolving over the next 12 months?
Well, thank you, Rob. So whenever we have a discussion on AI, I always want to put discussion on definitions. So the USPTO has been using what we call traditional AI or classic ML for a long period of time in things like automated classification, relevance ranking, to help both pre-exam, exam, and post-exam, and such as route, work, and surface. So AI has been a core of the classic AI for many, many years. So we're going to limit this discussion to what we call, and people are familiar with, generative AI, or what's also called as LLMs, large language models. And so this question I'm going to narrow to this: how do I see these capabilities supporting specifically patent examiners under the various statutes, 101, 102, 103, 112. So if we start with that baseline, where do we stand today is pretty straightforward. Patent examiners are not permitted to use generative AI for official examination at this time. Before anybody takes a breath, let's just talk about this. So because the patent group has taken properly so, a deliberate approach, assessing risk and benefits, writing governance, and designing a secure environment where what requires before we roll out. You know what? People have to understand, we have 8,000 examiners. So it has to be a careful approach. But my North Star is very pragmatic. My North Star is we will not deploy to patent examiners for novelty's sake. We will only deploy where the tools that demonstratively help patent examiners deliver clearer, faster, and more defensible work while preserving the patent examiner's authorship and judgment. But there are some caveats to that. In Q4 of 2025, that's the Patent Office's Q4, the Patent Office deployed a specific USPTO-approved generative AI tool, and that is what we call USPTO Generative AI Tool LLM, to what's also referred to as Supervisory Patent Examiners, or SPEs. And that was done to both gather their feedback and assessments and learn how the tool can potentially demonstrate measurable gains in quality and time savings for patent examination process. Now, if we flip back for patent examiners, in the short term, what we are exploring is targeted modules powered by this USPTO Generative AI LLM integrated directly into examiner tools. Because what this would allow these AI-assisted features to appear within a familiar system for examiners already using this dashboard every day, rather than requiring them to learn another tool. And that's also going to be our mantra. We're not going to give you just another tool. We're going to make sure it's powered by this LLM. So once these conditions are met, gathering the feedback and assessments, and how the tool can potentially demonstrate measurable gains, here's how we think that potentially it can help patent examiners at a high level. And we're going to go through claim construction, summary of invention, priority date hygiene, 102, 103, 101, and 112, all the things that all patent examiners know. So let's dive a little bit deeper on what this tool in the future will be rolled out for. For claim construction, it will help examiners draft a clear, claims-first interpretation, identifying key terms, noting special definitions from the specification, and aligning terminology. And the example I give is silica versus silicon dioxide, that kind of synonym. A concise, fully editable construction section, making downstream 101, 102, 103, and 112 analysis clearer and more consistent. For the summary of the invention, it will generate a compact, source-anchored summary of the technical improvement and claim, and will guide eligibility on a 101, frame 112 support checks, and focus 102 and 103 searching. For priority date hygiene, it will surface the priority chain and likely effective filing dates, publication, filing, and priority claim upfront to reduce misapplication of references such as 102 and 103. For 102, it will assemble claim-to-reference mapping with pinpoint citations so examiners spend less time on mechanics and more on whether each of these elements is actually present in the prior art. For 103, it will surface plausible reference combinations and draft a rationale tied to these cited materials. For 101, it will provide a step-by-step scaffold, identify any judicial exceptions, additional elements, assess practical applications. And for 112, it will flag potential clarity or support gaps, suggesting when 112F may apply, and collecting candidate passages for written description and enablement analysis. Always subject to the patent examiner's judgment. So let's talk about the guardrails. These are the 4 guardrails that are not negotiable. 1, examiners remain the authors of the record and the final decision makers. 2, every suggestion must be traceable to specific sources, so no black box statements. 3, we will operate inside a secure, authorized environment. For that, Debbie's going to go into detail on what is being done in her office. The system must be explainable and auditable. Model cards, version controls, and logs so we can always reconstruct what happened. Given those guardrails, what are the next, Rob, your last question is, what are the next 12 months for patent examiners subject to evaluation and governance? So we will have narrow examiner-designed projects in isolated environments, such as claim construction outlines, invention summaries, claim to citation mappings, eligibility, and support scaffolds. Every draft fully editable with visible source links and confidence indicators. No expansion without clear evidence of quality gains. We will show strong operational plumbing, integration with trusted editors and form paragraph workflows, centralized template management, art area calibrations, and train the trainer module so adoption adds speed, not friction. And finally, as important as all of these, measurement and transparency. We would evaluate with evidence, not anecdotes, metrics including time saved on routine assembly, clarity of first actions, change in after finals and RCEs, and examiner satisfaction. We'll invite practitioners and applicants to provide feedback so the tools are both operationally useful and publicly explainable. Finally, Rob, if we do this right, the payoff is tangible. Clearer claim constructions up front, earlier visibility on priority dates, more time for interviews and substantive reasoning, explanations that address all claims with appropriate grouping, better articulated rationales, and first actions that, as Director Squires sitting in the audience always says, born strong, helping reduce back and forth and build confidence in outcome. I'll close where I begin. Generative AI can be a helpful assistant, but it would never replace the expert legal judgment of our examining corps. My commitment is to proceed cautiously with examiners in the lead, rigorous controls in place, and decisions driven by measurable improvements in quality and timeliness. I will leave it with this. Examiner expertise leads, technology supports, and together with the broad patent community, we will deliver a clearer, more predictable prosecution record for applicants and the public. Thanks, Rob.
Barry, that was great. I have, I have a lot of questions, but I want to keep this panel moving, and I'm sure we're going to get questions from the audience. So we'll get to those once we get through a little bit further into the panel. Greg, trademarks. So I know when I arrived here in the fall, trademark was really doing basically nothing in the AI space at that point. And you guys have really moved the needle quite a bit. I vividly remember a meeting we had in November where we were mapping out what you wanted to do over the next 6 months. Then you put the plan in action, you executed, and you have several AI tools out there right now and a lot more coming down the pike. Can you share with this audience what we're doing right now in trademarks and trademarks and the AI space?
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, thank you for the question and thank you for the acknowledgement. We have an amazing, innovative team in trademarks, and we were kind of there at the starting line, ready to go, and we just needed a little bit of ability to kind of get out on the street. And thanks to you for your leadership, thanks to the director for his leadership, the Secretary of Commerce, and the President for really kind of giving us the space to be able to do this work. And as you mentioned, once the door was open, we went charging through. And I am exceedingly proud of where we are as an organization because we have really made some difference in a very, very short period of time. So let me just kind of run down some of the capabilities that we've introduced just recently and then where we're going to go in the next year or so. The first thing that I would like to talk about is our Class Act tool. That is an acronym that the director actually came up with, and I think it kind of speaks highly for what we did. It stands for Classification Agentic Codification Tool. It's a 4-part capability. The first 3 parts are mostly invisible to our customers except for the ability to search. And what that does is it provides an international class for the app for the mark itself. It provides a design search code if that is required, and it provides a pseudomark if there's a reason for a pseudomark. That's all done in our pre-exam organization. We have people that have been grading the system since its inception about in the early part of March. And we're getting really, really high marks for that tool, and we're really, really excited about where we're going with that. The director kind of coined a tagline for us, which is actually a bumper sticker on the back of my truck right now, but it's 5 months into 5 seconds. That's how long it took from the pendency of that tool. So there's
It's quite a great headline.
Oh, it is. It's a great tagline, and we should trademark that thing, I think, out there. But no, it is really, and it's kind of followed the process as we've gone about it, and we've heard an awful lot about it from our stakeholders. The fourth part that we released just last week is the first part that our external customers are going to be able to see for themselves, and it's the capability that provides either a mark description in the syntax and in the technical writing that we like it to be, and it also provides for a color claim if, in fact, the system determines that maybe there's a reason to designate color. The customer has the choice of accepting either or both, and or they can just do it themselves. But it's just a great tool, and we've seen just an amazing amount of acceptance of all of that. And our Class Act tool, in the course of just really the last month that it's been going, we've had over 67,000 of these things go through already. So we're really, really proud of that. Image search. One of the tools that I've wanted to do pretty much since I got here was to add image search to our trademark search. And we were able to do that in early April. Less than a month ago, we released that tool. And now, provided that you've got a My USPTO account, it's the only part of our search system that you can't access just straight through the USPTO web. You actually have to create an account with us. But you can drag and drop a design into that, and you can see what exists within the corpus of federally registered marks, and that is really, really neat. And it's frankly something that is kind of a dream come true for a lot of the people on the technical side of the trademark organization.
Greg, if I may,
Yeah.
I just want to compliment that, because I did see the prototype when you guys were developing it, and it is slick and it's very intuitive. So I think it's going to be very well received. So congrats.
Yeah, thank you for that, Rob. It really is. You know, we have an outstanding, we've got a crack CX team that goes out there and interviews our stakeholders and takes a lot of input. And so everything we build has our customer in mind. And whether that customer's internal or external, that's exactly what we want to do. So thank you for that feedback. I mentioned an RF. We've got a couple of requests for information out there. There are two. We just published the answers to the questions just today for both of those, but we're looking at one is a pretty expansive request for information from our vendor community to fight fraud. And I know that most of you that have been associated with trademarks for a while understand there's a significant fraud problem out there, so we're working on fraud. The other request for information is internal. For our internal audience, and we're looking for vendors to help us with examination and with quality review. And so those are out there, and you know, if you're a vendor and you're looking for business, the May the 4th is the date for the official response for the first RFI, and May the 6th for the second RFI. So please help us help you with some AI-assisted work on both sides of that. Barry mentioned the large language model that we have built internally. We were fortunate in that we had an exceptional team of folks from across the different organization in ops, examination, policy, and admin who kind of ran a beta for us for the LLM. We gathered a ton of lessons learned, and we did a lot of really good work of liaising with the developers of that tool. And we released about a month ago to all of the employees on our examination policy side and all of the employees on our administration side access to the tool. We're going to hold it from our examining attorneys until July, just because we've got kind of the same process that Barry mentioned about making sure that we've got all the guardrails in place and the rules and the policies and things. But for the rest of the team, we released that, and frankly, the take rate has been higher than I anticipated. People are using it in a lot of different ways, and it's kind of exciting to see that. Let's see, what else did I have on there? So 12 months into the future. One of the things that we're not holding us back on is the size of the project, right? We know that we can make a lot of impact with small projects right away. Most of what we've done, thanks to our vendors out there, our partners in industry, were smaller projects that allowed us to kind of really get out in front of them early and quickly and see results. And we want to keep doing a lot of those, and we are, you know, our technical team and our subject matter experts are kind of coming to us with new ideas. We also don't want to, we also realize that big items get big return on investment, right? So we're not going to let the size of the project determine the work that we're going to do. And we're going to tackle a lot of these things as we go forward and really try to make a difference in the trademark community and lead the rest of the world with trademark AI. So thank you, Rob, for that.
Debbie, I know your organization is, first of all, it's very impressive. You guys are doing incredible work. You're really supporting everybody's AI initiatives here within the agency, and I just want to make sure everybody realizes how critical it is to the success of what we're doing, as is everybody on this panel's teams. They're just really very, very impressive. But I thought it'd be really interesting for you to share more about, as we're looking at, everything's moving so fast and in the commercial space, how is the agency keeping up and ensuring intellectual property is being protected?
Yeah, it should be no surprise that protecting the intellectual property is job one for the CIO and certainly job one for the agency leadership. And no surprise that we've got leadership from patents, trademarks, policy, the acting chief AI officer, data officer, Rob, here with us, stressing the importance that across all the business units, leadership is leaning in, understanding that protection, understanding where our data goes is extremely important, who has access to it. And I think Barry mentioned transparency, and certainly there is no black box. But with that said, there's the leadership level, agency officials certainly leaning in every chance we get, and we'll hear more from Stefanos on the policy side. I think from an IT specific, how do we in the CIO space really lean into that? And it all starts with our cybersecurity team and our cloud infrastructure team, the applications that Greg mentioned that are available in trademarks and in patents and their patent search AI. Those tools are built with the team members from the product team, so it's certainly a team approach. Certainly there are data architecture teams and our cyber and our procurement. I can't leave them out. So from the beginning, we're ensuring that we've got procurement guardrails and engaging and monitoring throughout. We maintain the data from end to end with visibility, and it kind of speaks to what Barry mentioned about transparency throughout. And that's from creation and tagging, secure movement, authorized use. Greg mentioned having to have a My USPTO account to log in to the search tool for trademarks. And then, of course, the final destination, and then who has it after that. So all of those things are integral to understanding our AI journey. And I'll just spend a couple more moments on like the contractual protections. Certainly with our vendors, we certainly have all the clauses in there in terms of data rights, data use, data limitations, where does the data go? I feel like I do data in my sleep. And without those safeguards, though, or with those safeguards, that's what we know is really protecting the agency throughout. And then working collaboratively across the IT space with the product teams from patents and trademarks and corporate. We have the authority to operate, and that really outlines for everybody what their roles are in that AI use case, the data, and how do we monitor and control that access. And then I think lastly, Barry also mentioned having not only that black box, but FedRAMP approved tools and commercial usage. And certainly that is something that we are using the commercial tools that are only FedRAMPed with secure endpoints, with established boundaries and controls, and that are to the highest federal security standards. So we're not skipping any I'll say, controls or loopholes, and I greatly appreciate Greg saying that we're moving fast, but we are moving in a very secure manner. And then lastly, I think we talked a little bit about the USPTO generative large language model and just custom models in general. Making sure that, again, there's a process. We are certainly understanding that we maintain and own all the models. They're within our secure platforms, in our cloud environments, so is the data. And then lastly, I'll just talk a little bit about that generative LLM and how in enterprise, you kind of heard from a little bit about patents and trademarks usage. So for us, that generative model is providing the kind of the AI assist on the fly. It's real time. It's helping our developers review their code, provide test cases, gives recommendations on. We have an AI prompt library, so it's giving them recommendations. It's really short-circuiting and really providing that, I'll say, express ramp to building tools for patents and trademarks. And then certainly across the other corporate areas, not just in CIO, but in our legal area, legal research, as Stefanos mentioned, in policy, providing some access to case materials so that they can further research. And then, of course, back to all things IT, certainly we use it for database optimization and other types of, I'll say, cross-checks for security and IT development. So.
That's great. Thank you, Debbie. And I just wanted to also highlight that this tool that we've been talking about, this internal generative AI tool that the agency has developed, first of all, Debbie's team's really taking the lead on that and developing that and really getting that out there and deployed. But we are in beta right now still. But we are looking at rolling that out into a full agency launch in early May, and there'll be more details on that to follow coming out of this. With that, Stefano, ready to go here. Policy is critical to everything we do. You've been leading the charge with us on the AI policy side. What can you share with us about what to expect the next 12 months and anything recent from the policy perspective that this audience should know about? We'd love to share that information.
Yeah, sure. Well, first, as we've heard today, there's a lot of exciting things going on in both the patents organization, the trademarks organization, and within OCIO, a lot of amazing tools that are being developed for the benefit of our employees. But AI has also emerged as a key component of how individuals and organizations are protecting their intellectual property. And as a result, a lot of policy issues and policy conversations have arisen at that intersection of AI and IP. And over the past year, we've focused heavily on some of the guidance that we could put out at that intersection. So I'm going to highlight a few things to begin off with. There's probably no area that's gotten more attention since the fall than subject matter eligibility. We've put out several guidance related documents with respect to subject matter eligibility. First, starting in August, we issued a memo to examiners with reminders relating to how they can examine patent applications that have AI or critical emerging technologies in them. And then not so long later, about a month later, in September, Director Squires addressed the eligibility of AI inventions via an appeals review panel, the ex parte Desjardins decision, which also later had an advance notice of change to the MPEP. Two very big guidance documents were provided. I'm not going to go into such detail on these because they were addressed really, really well in a previous USPTO hour. So if you want to get into the specifics of those, I would encourage you to go back and watch the November USPTO hour. But given the multitude of things we're covering here today, I'm not going to go into detail on them. But since that USPTO hour, we've continued to focus on subject matter eligibility. In December, we issued guidance on using Rule 132 declarations to address rejections under subject matter eligibility. Two different memos came out, one for the benefit of our users to explain to them some best practices for using these declarations, as well as one to examiners for how to evaluate these declarations that come in. There's actually training that was just recently made available to our examiners on both of these topics, so we want to make sure they have the best information, that they're prepared to evaluate subject matter eligibility concerns with respect to AI applications as well as these declarations. In addition, it's not just subject matter eligibility. We also put out new guidance with respect to inventorship back in November. That guidance essentially underscored the fact that the same legal standard applies for inventions, that regardless of whether the fact that they have AI involved with them or not. So that was another memo we put out. And then looking ahead, there's a lot of issues with respect to, there's a lot of issues that come up with AI and IP, from things like disclosure requirements and how much information will need to be disclosed in the future when there's AI tools, so maybe the AI models, AI data, training data. We're also looking at things regarding novelty and obviousness, and for example, what a person of having ordinary skill in the art, what their capability is now that they have AI tools at their disposal, as well as just the overall issues that arise with the volume of prior art that can be put out there now that AI is so prevalent. We're monitoring court cases, so guidance will, kind of depend sometimes on how court cases shape up and what's happening in the real world. We're also keeping an eye on what is going on legislatively. So just last month, also in March, the White House released this national policy framework for AI, which set forth several legislative recommendations across various categories. One of those categories was on respecting IP rights and supporting creators. And it was helpful for us to see the direction that the administration is going and some of the priorities that they have. So I will flag two here for you that came out of that report. It highlighted the administration's belief that training of AI models on copyrighted data does not necessarily violate copyright laws, but acknowledges there are arguments on the other side of that, and really urged like a patient approach with Congress in that one, to let the courts play out some of these issues. On the flip side, they urged Congress to consider a federal framework for protecting individuals from unauthorized distribution or commercial use of AI-generated digital replicas of their voice, likeness, or other identifiable features. So again, we're monitoring court cases, we're monitoring what's going on legislatively as well as over the next year. And then we're also very engaged with other partners we have within the U.S. government to help advance America's AI action plan. We're regularly engaging with different bureaus. Can give a few examples. For example, in the G7 and G20 context, there are working groups where AI and IP become topics, and we're providing our expertise there. The G20 this year is actually being hosted by the United States in December, and one of the priorities of that G20 meeting is pioneering innovations in AI and emerging technologies. So we're looking at policies that foster innovation while protecting, for security, privacy, and advancing a pro-IP agenda. So we're looking forward to seeing how those conversations shake out over the next year.
Great, thank you. And then I do, Debbie, I think you and I know Greg are also having conversations with some of the international partners too, if you want to highlight that.
Yes, sure. So for the CIO team and partnering with the patents team, we're talking to Australia about identity detection and how they're using certain AI tools to determine potentially, fakes or frauds in the door. And so that's been a very engaging conversation, and we're going to continue to collaborate with them and see what types of sharing capability we might have. And I think Greg has another
Example. That'd be great.
Yeah, thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Rob. Yeah, one of the things that we've done is just last week, Debbie's deputy, a member from Stefano's team, and I met with the World Intellectual Property Office's CIO, and their director for application incubation, which is a cool office, I think. But we talked about Class Act, and we talked about some of the work that we're doing here in the on the trademark side. And I know that those folks are going to be really looking forward to INTA next week in London, and they're going to be talking to a few gentlemen that are up here and in the audience as well about some opportunities for sharing and code development and some other things like that. So we're really excited that we're getting some press outside of the United States. So thank you.
And I can maybe add a little bit more. We don't have a bilateral meeting or any international meeting where AI is not a topic on that agenda, if you will, whether it's the smallest ones or the biggest ones. Just maybe 6 months ago, 5 months ago, when we hosted a trilateral meeting with the European Patent Office and Japan Patent Office, one of the deliverables that came out of that was the creation of a AI trilateral working group for our offices to collaborate better, more efficiently, and start to drive some initiatives under AI. Just this week, we met as an IP5 deputy heads meeting, and we talked about our new emerging technologies and AI roadmap, which is actually 5 years old now. It was, pretty progressive when it was developed 5 years ago, but so much has changed in the last 5 years. There's opportunities for us to also take a fresh look at it with our international partners. So we have a lot of engagement on the international side in all our offices on sharing best practices with AI and moving things forward.
Thanks, Stefanos. So, guys, I'm getting a lot of, my iPad's blowing up, my phone's blowing up with questions coming in from the audience. So I wanted to get to some of these questions, as many as we can with the time that's remaining. But one of them that just came in earlier while you guys were speaking was, how are we preparing the workforce for AI? And I'll take the first part of that question, because that's one of the things that we're driving from the front office, which are implementing a agency-wide AI change management program. That'll be kind of a global playbook for how we want to approach AI at the agency. And then from that, each business unit within the agency is going to draft off of that and customize that playbook for their specific team and how that'll draft. So I thought maybe what I could do is I'll start with Debbie, with you, and then we can go through the business units here and just give everybody a very quick highlight of what we're doing in their business units to prepare for this, because I think it's really important for everybody to know.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We, again, started with the USPTO General LLM. We launched the AI hub for our teammates. It has education, training, governance, and guardrails. It's a place where we spotlight AI use cases, so we're, again, trying to be very transparent for our teammates. We also recently started putting in AI playbooks to help people leapfrog with the use of AI, so they're not having to recreate the wheel kind of thing. And then lastly, I think, as Rob mentioned, the change management. So we're going to be helping the agency and supporting all of the other BUs with their AI rollout and helping them with education and communications and wherever we can provide the most benefit. Thanks, Rob.
Barry, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, following up, of course, we're doing all the things that Debbie are leading on. But again, I want to point out when we talk about AI that big kudos to the patent team who have been using AI for many, many years, both in pre-exam, in exam, and post-exam. So, I constantly want to focus the question on how are we preparing them for generative AI. And, it's what I talked about before. It's feedback and assessment, it's training, and it's also messaging. Because we understand that people read the press and read lots of what I call fallacy mythology about what generative AI is capable of. We're taking the view and hopefully messaging at all times that this is a tool that can help the agency, help the stakeholders, and assist the examiners. And so a lot of this is about messaging and training the examiners on understanding that they are the priority and they are the persons that we care about.
Greg, do you want to add?
Yeah, thank you, Rob. So appreciate what the Undersecretary's office is doing to kind of put together a strategic change management program for us. And we have a subordinate plan in place as well, too, that we're spinning up. I mentioned that we had a group of people who did a beta work for us, led by a very experienced managing attorney from the ops side and our director of innovation and emerging technology on the IT side co-led that operation, and we took a lot of lessons learned. We turned information back to the developers on Debbie's team to make sure that our voice was being heard. And then what we're doing is we've got champions, within each of the 3 deputy organizations that are going to be kind of our spokespeople for AI. And then we have a champion of champion who's going to manage that entire process for us. So we've got an intricate kabuki dance happening, and we're very excited about what's going to go forward. Thank you.
Great. Stefano?
All right, so on the policy teams, we do have access also to our generative AI tool. And maybe we don't have champions of champions, but we definitely have some champions that are leading the way in things that we can do. You definitely see a different level of comfort, not surprising. Some people are much more used to using these tools than others. I've been very impressed to see, for example, our economists using it to write Python code so they can query databases. It was a use I had not thought of when I came to the policy team. So definitely a level of comfort there. But I think as a policy team, they're also very aware of some of the risks that come with using AI, and that when they're doing research, they need to make sure that they're validating that research, that it's their own work product. So I think it's going to only increase over time, the usage and acceptance of it, as more and more of our staff are starting to test what it's all about.
Great. And then there's a few other major initiatives that we've been doing here on AI just for the workforce in general. I think it'd be great for the public to be aware of it. But we do have an AI policy council that has been put into place since the fall. So that meets on a regular basis. We have an AI governance council that meets on a regular basis, again, covering all the issues and making sure that there is agency-wide collaboration and awareness of what we need to work on in this space and address any of the questions in there. We have a senior leader AI working group with numerous business unit AI groups underneath them. So this is a topic that's being discussed daily at this company and a huge focus. And I think you can hear from the panelists today how much work is going into this area and the opportunity that it gives us to transform this agency and really prepare for the future and better serve our stakeholders. We want to stay ahead of the curve. We don't want to be behind the curve on this. And what I have experienced being here in a short period of time is that exactly what the agency is doing with the leadership from the front office, from the director, the deputy director, everybody up there. That's where we're going on this space. So I do think I just wanted to share that because I don't think everybody realizes everything that's going on here. We also have a very structured approval process for any AI use cases that come up that want to be used by this generative AI tool and in other areas within the agency. And then, of course, we have an AI risk management process to make sure that everything is working and above board, and we're in good shape on that front. So we're firing on multiple fronts on that front. Again, it's a massive effort and a lot of great talent, and everybody's working really hard on that. Questions coming in, so I'm going back and forth on this one. But there was one that came in. Are you seeing filed applications or AI gibberish? What are the actions being taken? This is probably a Greg Barry question, if you guys want to address that.
Yeah, thank you, Rob, for the question. We have seen for a number of years, we've gotten gibberish applications. Whether or not they're AI or not, we quite haven't determined yet. There's a lot of not so intelligent people that file, and sometimes they're, no, we're looking into that. One of the things that we want to try to solve with the fraud work that we're looking at is how do we get to an understanding of what unsupervised artificial intelligence is, and how do we make that determination, and then how do we act upon it, And so we're doing that, but yes, we've seen, just a combination of letters that have come in, but whether or not it's AI or not, we're still trying to figure that part out. Barry?
You almost stole my thunder, Greg. So I'll just repeat what Greg just actually said. I mean, we're very actively looking at this issue. We understand this is a priority, and actually this morning we were discussing the issue again and from the heads. So this is an issue we are very concerned about, and we are looking at putting out statements with regard to this. Clearly, it's happening. Look, it's as someone who advised the New Jersey Supreme Courts, the courts are seeing this all the time, so why would we be any different? We're not, and so we will be handling that. Again, the stakeholders will see pretty soon, at least from the patent side, what we believe the process should be.
Stefano, I think also this was something you were going to bring up, but it came in a question more about policy. Is there an opportunity to have more detail on policy, like going forward in one of these sessions?
Yeah, I think we will definitely be looking to have a more detailed dive into the policy considerations. I think many people, we're also working on a AI strategy document that we hope to get out soon. So as that comes out, I think there's also going to be more opportunities for us to continue to engage with our stakeholders and hear their feedback as well. But definitely we want to have more in-depth conversations on the policy front.
Okay, great. And then this one may be a Debbie question, maybe a Stefano question. Could you describe the governance framework that oversees the agency AI LLM, including how decisions are made about its scope?
So I guess I'll start. So the last part is, well, I'll start with the last part of mine. And how decisions are made about AI scope and use cases.
I believe
so. Yeah, so as Rob mentioned earlier, we've got the AI policy group. We work closely with Stefanos' team. We've got the governance council represented throughout the agency with I'm not sure if they're champions of champions, or I'm not sure what their title is, but they are leading their BUs on understanding AI use cases that are presented. We do have an ingest process that Rob kind of mentioned, and we carefully cull through that and bring that to and with the AI Governance Council with their full knowledge and transparency, and it's within that conversation and collaboration that the scope of AI is addressed. So, yeah, pretty extensive.
Great. Greg, did you want to add to this, or Stefano? I don't know if you... No, we're good. Oh, no worries, all good. I do have another one for you, Stefano, that just came in. Other patent offices are pursuing AI-assisted tools. Are there any efforts to work with those offices, develop tools that will help examiners examine? I think we touched on that, but you can
So we're definitely having a lot of conversations with foreign offices on what tools they use to better understand their use cases. Within the IP5, and I mentioned this trilateral AI working group, we kind of even have more conversations with respect to tools and where we can partner either in evaluating tools or potentially even working together on some tools. So we'll see what comes of it in the future. But just as an example, within classification, we are partners with the EPO in the classification system. We often talk to them about the AI tools that we're using. So
great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Question for Barry. In the current talk, is the speaker saying that what one or ordinary skill in the art might know will now change because they have access to AI tools?
So I know Stefano's addressed this, but let me address it a different way. So in patents, when we're looking at a generative AI tool, we understand that it has to be from a person of ordinary skill in the art. And so any AI guardrails, how we're teaching the AI, one is mission critical is that it is a pasita and does not just become all-knowing. So we are very conscious of that. We are very much, that is where we put in SOWs, everything, that is a requirement that the AI treats a PCETA, look, it can change over a lifetime, but we understand right now that that is a guardrail, that is a check-off, this must have, that it's acts as a PCETA in whatever technology we're working with.
Great. Did you want to add?
I'll just add one small comment. You know, what I was saying is these are areas where we, may see developments, we may see court cases filed. So they're just things that we're paying attention to, not necessarily that any like immediate guidance or changes are coming out, just conversations we know that are out there.
Great, thank you. We are at time, folks. We went through, there's a lot more questions here, but first of all, I want to thank our panelists. Thank you, guys, incredible, great bench here on that. And then to our audience, thank you for the questions. Thank you for your engagement. Keep coming, keep asking us questions. We want to be as transparent as possible what we're doing here. And then if you have any looking for further information, you can always go to our website. That's there. And thank you again. And we'll be talking about AI a lot on these panels going forward. Take care. Thank you.